I'm very animated before the show starts. I'm very, very animated. So welcome back, because we are live for another episode of The JD Show. This week's guest is absolute king. We've been talking for a while, but finally actually managed to find the time to get on the show. We both have a nice storied experience and lots of connections because we both worked in the IT industry. Joe still does. I just pretend to hang out with some cool people within the channel. So first and foremost, thanks again for the guests coming through. We're going to put a stop on it because in a few weeks, near the end of the year, so in the end of summer, we're going to put a halt on the JD Show for a little while we sit down, rebrand and kick everything off in the new year. It's been 3 straight years, and thank you for everyone who's been involved and come and watched and commented and sent us guests. It's been awesome. We're going to take half a little breath, so this doesn't have to happen every 2 weeks. Rebuild, come back better, faster, stronger. Anyway, enough ado about the show, because damn it, who cares about the show? We care about our guests here. That's what we do. So, without further ado, the wonderful, the phenomenal Mr. Joe Aucott.
Hello. How are we doing?
Hi. Not too bad, sir.
I care about the show. Don't sell yourself short. I'm first things first. I got called a king there, and that's the first for me, being of average height. I think the term is a short king.
not on a remote show. Oh no,
yeah.
sir.
Yeah, I'm like 6.5 foot, mate. But no, I didn't realize. The kind of doors were closing on this little legacy for the time being, and you were.
Yeah, so we've gone every other week since I was accepted into the LinkedIn Live program, kind of out the blue. So I kind of went for it and was rejected, and was like, okay, cool. And it came up again on a feed or something, and I was like, cool. And 18 months later, out the blue, they were like, good news, you've got a month to go live. So we were like, okay, cool. How do you go live? What do you do? Just do it. And just set up guests. But that was back in like 2019, end of 2018. Like we did a couple of shows just at the end of the year and then kicked it off. So every fortnight since then, bar Christmas, because hey, it's Christmas, we've gone live. So actually what we're doing is looking to upgrade the current system that we're running on. We run on something called StreamYard. So LinkedIn's live program doesn't have its own, like, here, click live, yay, you've got to use a third party. So we've always used StreamYard, but we're going up, Joe. Ooh, it's going up in the world. We're going to something called OBS, which is an open platform, and we'll be able to like have real fancy cameras and someone doing live TV, live editing. It's going to be very exciting, but I really don't want to try and shoehorn it in for the team to just be like, next week, go. This feels like something that might need some testing and such to go on.
Yeah. Well, you've got to be happy though. I mean, you've had people who I regard as the dons on here. Leah Turner. Yeah, Leah Turner is amazing. Brian Burns was a standout.
What a king!
Yeah, and then you had Mr. LinkedIn himself, Mike Winnett, who he completed LinkedIn ages ago.
Early.
The rest of us are kind of like, still trying to find the eggs, to unlock the gates. But yeah, he's something else. So, yeah,
indeed.
It's good.
Well, and talking about old guests is great, but I'm sure I'm going to do a show late August where I do an omnibus, just because mostly it's fun to say, and my producer Richard enjoys it. And also, I grew up, in the 90s when you'd have all your like Coronation Street omnibus on the Sunday to 4 hours.
That's the only omnibus that I know. I don't know of any other time that's been applied. So.
I don't want it to be as cheesy as that. So forget old guests. That's then. Damn it, we're here and now, Joe. So tell the kids who are listening. I'm sorry, I've got the giggles. Tell the people about yourself. Who are you? Where'd you come from? As Sarah Black used to say.
My name is Joe Aucott. I know we went through how to pronounce that before, which led to a real weird musical skit before the camera started rolling. I am a business owner. I've been running Haptic Networks, which is our merry wee band of misfits for fast approaching 15 years. So we work in the IT channel, started life as a VAR. To cut a very, very long story short, we work with all sorts of technology, but our specialisms are Wi-Fi and cloud services. So we're doing a lot with Google and showing people the ways of Google and building that cult. So that's what we do. We work with organizations up and down the UK and a bit further afield. And that's how we make money to buy daft toys that we should have stopped playing with years ago.
Yeah, that for anyone who's watching this as a live feed, not a podcast, Joe's background is not a stick-on background. Right? That is a true background that has taken time and energy to cultivate. And there's a certain theme. It's vaguely Star Warsy.
Just a little bit, yeah. Yeah,
So,
this is the only room in the house where my wife, she just shakes her head every time she comes in. It's just like, you've seen like Ace Ventura when he sees like the trophy room with all the things. Ah! That's like my wife. She comes in here and she's just like, you absolute kid, what are you doing? But it's the garage, by the way. So I'm banished to the garage.
I mean, that's my kind of garage. So IT, right?
Yep.
We all think it's not exciting when we work in it, but it's relatively important and such. And the Wi-Fi space, something when I got out of IT was something we were starting to play on as a business, or I was anyway, starting to understand. Just because of all of a sudden, I remember talking to a CTO who was like, last year we had 1,000 people try and connect, right? A few different devices each, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 3. But mostly 2, had 1,000 devices. And he's like, and this year we have 7,000 devices all connecting. It was a school or a something. And then, he's just looking at the predictions and being like, I don't see how we do this with seamless Wi-Fi everywhere and to go through. So it must be an interesting space to work in, because continuous innovation, like it's, it's pushed really hard, and the tech tends to push back pretty hard as well.
Yeah, it does. And, I mean, the Wi-Fi thing was an early piece for us, because when I started the business, all I was doing was just shifting Dell hardware. I kind of started with a desk, which was in another business's stock room.
Nice.
And I had a desk there and a phone by my little Todd. And yeah, I was just selling Dell hardware because I thought, right, okay, I know I can sell it cheaper than Dell themselves could, because they had a bit of a shadow channel going on. And I was selling to schools because I knew they weren't going to go bust and owe us a load of money. And that's how we started. And we got, I made the first hire in 6 months, and he's still with me, Mark. He's our CTO. Same with Stephanie, our finance manager. She was there from the get-go. But just got bored. We were like, this is really boring. How do we kind of broaden our horizons a little bit? And this was, just short of 14 years ago, when the Wi-Fi thing really kind of took off. And a lot of it, to be honest, a lot of it was bosses and teachers getting things like iPads at Christmas, and then coming into the place of work and going, this shit doesn't work.
What? Call the IT manager. What's going on?
So it's been a great thing to, not focus all of our energies on. We had a few discussions a few years after we picked it up about just purely sticking to that as a solution and building our business around it. Thankfully, we didn't. We tagged other things onto it, but that as a technology piece, because let's be frank, just like you were saying, IT is fucking boring, and it really if you're in the channel, or if you're a techie and all the rest of it, and if it's your job, obviously you're passionate about it, you love it, and obviously we are, and we enjoy the things that we play with and talk about, but
the conversations that happen in your office and everyone's like, wow, that's amazing. Come say it in our office, and everyone's like,
Exactly. I had this big hang up, especially about 4 or 5 years of running the business. I had this big hang up about telling people that I ran a business. I had all this kind of head trash about if I met somebody that I didn't know and they asked me what I did, as they invariably do. I almost kind of felt a little bit self-conscious about saying I'm a business owner, I run a business, and some of the perhaps kind of snap judgments that would be made about me. And that was kind of compounded when, if I did tell people that I ran a business, when they asked me what I did, and you start talking, and they just like, fuck it, they just glaze over. They're like, you do what? So for years and years and years, I was telling people I was a bin man, a milkman. And it's so strange. If you've never done this, just do it anyway. And if you are a bin man, a milkman, I'm not knocking you. Fair play to you. You're way fitter than I am, and I'm sure the quality of life and everything, and the peace of mind is far better. But when you meet somebody for the first time and they ask you what you do, and then you tell them that you're a milkman, they just kind of like look at you, and they go slack jawed, and they again the snap judgments come out. So that kind of proves my theory a little bit. But coming back to the point, unless you're in IT, unless you're working in that space, it can be painfully boring. And one of the things I've always said with all of the people that I've met in technology, yourself included, the IT industry has an army of really interesting people desperately trying to flog some really boring shit.
Yeah.
And it's a big challenge, you know. How do you try and rub some funk on something that, unless you have the pain
So
or unless you're in the job, is kind of alien to you? So yeah, this has been one of the things that shaped our branding and our message, and how we try and talk to people, which is just as human beings first, and you know, technology representative.
What? Not tech? What people? Good
I
God,
know, I know.
Joe, that's never going to work, mate.
Well, it did get said when
Obviously,
when I got kicked out of, and I did, this true story, I got kicked out of A-level IT after 6 weeks. My teacher said to me, "You're never going to work in IT." And that's what he said to me.
sold.
So yeah, I was challenge accepted. Hold my beer. Let's see what we can do.
But I think it's so important, because that was when I started to see success working in IT, was realizing I worked in sales, right? I was never techie. I never even necessarily understood the tech. I found it literally my job was just to understand the pain points people might have. If I can identify them, then it was, have you met Ted? Right. And whoever Ted was an expert in that thing. Right.
That's
Because
the way to do it.
well, and I just really realized quickly in a room that as soon as I started spouting shit I did not understand, not fully, enough to have a conversation about it. Okay, so you need this, you need that. But like the next step on, when someone who didn't wear a shirt and tie to the meeting, the smart one, is just wearing a polo shirt and killing it over there. And you're like, why is he? Oh, because he's the knowledge. That's Johnny Knowledge right there. But when you sat there, I couldn't have a conversation with them. So I literally saw my job as to be like, hey, meetings are awkward. Here's some silly jokes very, very quickly. Right, we're all relaxed. Have you met Ted? He's going to talk about the problem that you have and kind of get out of the way, because it's people first.
Yeah.
I couldn't give those people what they needed without, going back in time and doing a degree, loving this thing and being as passionate as Ted, whoever that was about the product and how we could deliver it. Right. I just get in the way. And I kept seeing account managers and project managers kind of get in the way and insert themselves. And I'm like, my job is to kind of be like, shh, and you, shh, because the tech people are talking, right? Shush.
Yeah.
What do you need? Be techie and tell them, right? So it's got to be people first. Has to be people.
I mean, that's such a spot on way of really identifying some of the benefits and some of the pitfalls I think people find in the industry. Much like yourself, I come from a sales background, sales trained, then found myself in technology. I am not the techie guy, and anybody that's spoken to me or dealt with me will realize that I'm very open and honest about that. I will tell you flat out that an entry level IT kind of technician.
Yeah.
Good chance he knows a hell of a lot more than I do, having been in the industry for over 20 years. But one thing we're well aware of in our business and what we're very big on. I mean, obviously, training and development is a huge part of what we do.
Yeah.
And we kind of tacked on to Sandler sales training a good few years
Joe.
ago.
Joe.
Good few years ago.
I know what we're talking about in a minute. Carry on.
This is another topic. But one of the things that highlighted that I'd seen but I couldn't articulate was the kind of concept of dummying up, which is, you might know about things, you might know features and benefits, but you're going to be more effective if you don't show up and throw up and chuck all your stuff everywhere. Sit and listen and ask questions and take the perspective that you don't know the answers to things and you're trying to find out. And that will stop you getting in the way of momentum and opportunity. And that was
never
huge.
Spill your beans in the lobby. Never spill your beans in the lobby.
I thought it was spill your candy, but if you're used to going around spilling beans in people's lobbies, then that's a different problem.
Firstly, Joe, I like to mix metaphors. Secondly, I knew exactly the one you were talking about. That's not bad. Come on. I've only got 6 pieces of knowledge. And that's one of them.
You've got to be very, in today's day and age, you've got to be very careful where you're spilling your beans. I learned that lesson a long time ago.
Well, and I got it mixed up as well, because it's don't spill your beans in the lobby while riding a fish on a motorbike or something. Right. Okay. This is some seriously deep cut Sandler humor here. But no, I love Sandler sales. I was lucky enough when I started working for a VAR in my kind of last job, essentially, that I had before starting the agency. I was put on, firstly, all the salespeople had done Sandler. and were doing different stages as handler. So me and a fellow lead generator, when I started in the business, we both did like the 2-day crash course, but then lived in it. Just lived in it. And I found it was like the only sales process that I'd ever been, because I've been in sales like many years, but it'd be more around the case of like, get them to say yes. Do you like Star Wars? Yeah. Are you wearing a white shirt? Yeah. Do you want to buy my stuff? No. But it was all that kind of like forceful sales. I'd have my account manager sat on the phone next to me saying like, you got to get this closed. Like, tell him double. And I'm like, I can't tell him double. He's just calling back to say it didn't work. And like, you tell him if he does it for 6 months, and being like, listen. And like, that's not me, right? And Sandler was the first one which just pushed the quality home. Like, we're all people. It's absolutely fine to make a cold call to someone because that's your job. But at the same point, you should ask permission. Are you busy? Have I caught you a bad time? Because if I've caught you a bad time, you should tell me. And then I, will leave you alone because we're both people, right? And that has really bled into any time we're training salespeople or account managers. It's like, what about them? You can easily get into a phase where you're like, oh man, they haven't replied to that email I sent 2 weeks ago. They hate me. Like, they don't care about this. Like, or maybe they're busy doing that other thing. Who knows?
Yeah, it does. I mean, in any kind of sales role, any kind of position, there's conditioning you have to go through, and this is what I've really enjoyed with not just the Sandler thing. I think before Sandler, we were doing a lot of this in house, but I've always said to people, and I said this in an interview I was giving on, I was hosting on Monday for somebody that I wanted to bring into the business. One of the key tenets, one of the key things that I take very seriously about hiring and building the team is I have to leave people better than I found them. I have to, whether it's months, years, whatever, whether it's training, whether it's knowledge, whether it's self-esteem, confidence, results, whatever it is. If I don't feel that I can augment and add to what somebody already has, or if there's a chance they could decline, I don't care how much money it's going to make for the team and for the business. I say to them, and I articulate this in my response to them, look, I don't think it's a good fit because I think you're taking a risk coming here,
right?
And I wouldn't be happy about you doing that. So, looking after people's self-esteem, looking after people's identity, because the job, not just sales, a lot of jobs, what does it say? Life's tough. That's why no one survives, right? As soon as you crawl yourself out of the shame cave, you are ultimately getting kicked and battered and beaten all the way through your life if you let it. In sales especially, you have to build your armor up. And if your environment, if your team, if your management, whatever, if they're not invested in helping you develop your armor and roll with the punches, you need to get out of Dodge because you're going to take a few hits.
And it's too hard a job without support, right? Yeah. It's just too hard a job. And I don't just mean like support as in account managers having a lead generator, right? Because, that's sometimes about as useful as the paper it's written on. But like support in the fact that every month the pressure like kicks off again on the first. Every month or every quarter, depending on which way you roll. And even those companies I've heard with no target, right? It seems like they're just under pressure all the time. But you can be king 15 days ago because we're on the 14th right now. You could have been, the king riding high, absolutely smashed it, and just be in completely the opposite direction in this month, and now be wading through treacle and having that kind of support, not only of, because people do need to be pushed. Salespeople need to be pushed as well. Like, diamonds are made from whatever stuff. I don't know metaphors.
Stones and pressure or something like that.
Which is cool. Immovable object. I'm not good with metaphors. But
your metaphors are more like meta twos at the minute.
Yeah. Meta squares at this point. Without that support mentally if people need a rah-rah, there's all that stuff which people like, sales. There's a reason for it. Like, is needed. It's also sometimes a really vapid environment as well where they do the same activities.
Yeah. I mean, there's such a big kind of existential issue that I think sales has, and I learned a lot about this from reading a book called The Machine, which was the kind of look at the sales process and how to deconstruct it in division of labor and everything else. But the traditional sales role, right, was all the way dating back to the agricultural revolution, and people had the tools and the equipment to produce more than they needed and their community could trade with. Right, all of a sudden, there's a machine that's creating output,
Yeah.
and there's an excess of output. We need somebody to go and flog it, and that's the traditional model, right? Which is perfect for that, because then you can use the tactics, like you said, your old for the price, close it today, slow Brexit and all this stuff. You can shift stuff out the door, like all these horrible vampiric succubus types did in technology during COVID, and started flogging hand san and medical supplies. You know who you are, right? If you were flogging laptops and inks and toners on the Monday, and then you were trying to get in on the COVID medical supplies, like, we know who you are. Like, be ashamed of yourself. Do better next time. But the whole model changed when you're in an industry like ours, where everything that we do. I mean, we sell very few products. When I said we started, we were focused mainly on transactions and hardware. Transactional sales and hardware probably accounts for about 30% of our revenue every year. The rest of it is professional services, consultancy, support, solutions, and all of that is spec to order. All of that is completely unique every single time, because of the customer size and location and everything else. So we're creating bespoke solutions. So the traditional sales model does not apply. You can't stack that high and sell that cheap on a bog off because it's Amber Friday in fucking August or whatever it is. It's you have to go about it differently. But I think a whole ton of organizations didn't get that memo.
No.
And that's why it's smile and dial, hit your numbers, try and upsell, and
ABC. Sure.
I worked. I'm not afraid to admit it. When I was at sixth form, I worked at McDonald's for a spell, and my first bollocking at McDonald's came 2 days in, when I refused to upsell people. Do you want a large meal? And my rebuttal to that was, these are intelligent people. If they want a large meal, they're gonna ask for it. I don't want to be the guy that does that. And so yeah, I think the sales, but I also feel, especially from what I'm seeing on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people who are bringing through what I would class as the new wave, and a brilliant way of looking at sales, looking at prospecting, looking at building relationships and using platforms. So I think it's in a much better place now. 15 years ago, and I'm really happy to see it. I get prospecting calls now. I don't say cold call, because there's a big difference, because I used to be on the phone selling Windows. That was cold calling.
That's cold.
Prospecting is different. That ringing someone on a Sunday afternoon, trying to flog them Windows, that's cold, and so are the responses. But Jesus, it was a worse job. But
my co-founder did it for a very short while, and I think one of the reasons he quit was he's not a salesman. It's just like he was 16 or something like that, and had found a job. Was that you weren't allowed to leave. So if you got into Mr. and Mrs. Miggs's house, you had to be there for 4 hours or something like that. I remember saying 4 hours, like A&E, like you got to be there, like you just pop in for something. Even if as you arrive, they're like, "Thank God you're here, Joe." Because I was just saying to Mr. Miggs that we need new windows today.
I'm freezing my ass off. There's no glass in these frames, and I need you right now.
Nice. So my camera's died out for a second, but hey, the good news is half of this is a podcast, so it shouldn't be a problem.
it's because you're so pretty. The camera,
is that right?
The camera's got to give up. But yeah, let's be frank. I think one of the things that really pisses me off about being involved in sales, and I'm a proud salesperson. I take the craft very seriously. I take the profession very seriously. There's a whole bunch of people that will bag on it. A whole bunch of people that will quite rightly say a large number of people in sales fell into it. That is true, but there are people. And I was having a few messages last night with somebody on LinkedIn, and she was like phenomenally wired into the theory and the execution of sales kind of strategy and sales logic. And when I talk to people like that, I find that one of the better parts of my job, because I've said this time and time again, all my friends are trades. They're chippies, they're sparkies, they're skimmers, they're plumbers. making really nice livings for themselves and doing really, really well, doing a very difficult job that they spent,
Yeah.
a good few years learning how to do. I'll be honest with you, I'm probably going to get in shit for this, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I could take my entire team of people who currently work in the business.
Yeah.
If I gave them 4 years, so let's double up. Let's say I give them 4 years to learn how to do that. I'm confident all of those could pick up those trades in 4 years and be able to make money doing that.
Right.
I could take all of my friends who are tradespeople and I could give them 4 years to learn how to sell effectively, and they either couldn't or they wouldn't.
Right.
So sales is a very difficult job. It's a very skilled
And it
profession.
sits with some people, right? It perfectly sits with some people. I've seen people who are not very outgoing, who are not looking, not necessarily like your classic salesperson. That it's, when you meet people, you're like, hey, do you work in sales? And I've seen them do very, very well, like really very well, because they're great at building relationships in their way. And it doesn't, you don't have to be the bolshy, kick your door down, big tie and, big, it's just not a necessity. It's about how you build relationships if you're thinking people first. And everyone can build relationships because we all have. Well, more or less everybody can build relationships because we all have. So, using that and actually like pushing it and making sure that it's something, then it actually, it helps essentially. Just making sure that people have that ability to be themselves, push that message out, and that's okay. And the last business I worked in was the first place where it was okay specifically to be me. And then that's when I started having success.
Yeah.
Right. That's when it wasn't until kind of previous, until I was allowed to not be pushy and ridiculous on the phone, or, didn't have an account manager, or like my boss sat behind me being like, selling more stuff now. When I got past that and I was actually told it's okay if they don't buy something, someone else wants it. But that was a complete mind blow for me.
Yeah. And it is. And this is why I think sales is in a better place now. A lot more people are a lot more accepting. And we got rid of our dress code in the office. Jesus, 4 or 5 years ago? I was like, I just can't be bothered anymore. One of our members of staff, Jade, she won't mind me shouting her out. She came to the interview with electric blue hair, right? And one of the questions that she had in the interview was, with regards to dress code and everything else, what is it? What's it like? Can I keep my hair? And I was like, fucking, of course you can. Like, that's what I noticed as you came in the door. That's you as a person. That's your personality. Bring your blue hair, and if you want to change it to any other color, like, rock on, And
but you're employing that person, right? And you're employing Jade because who she is. You can't right, and that's because she's going to be able to speak to our people, the non-blue hairers amongst us aren't maybe going to connect with. Not just boiling down Jade to just hair color, right? But the way that you are and the way that you're going to have a different way of connecting with people, because we're all different, right? And being able to lean into it. Otherwise, you just end up with a bunch of, no one's got colored hair. And that's a boring environment. We don't want that. Like, you want to have a flair from everywhere, from everyone's personal. Otherwise, I don't know, go and work in the army.
Yeah.
Beat that out of you.
One of the things that I've done a fair bit of and I really like doing is benchmarking. I'll reach out to people on, normally LinkedIn if we're connected, if they're a business owner or a sales leader or whatever, and I'll message them and say, look, here's what I'm planning. I want to come and hang out at your place. Let me in, have a cup of coffee, and we'll sit and have a little chat, and I'll walk the floor and just check your place out. Come to ours, do the same, and let's spend half a day together, just kick some ideas around. And
nice.
What in your world is obviously going to be different to mine, and there's so much value you can get from that. And the amount of sales floors that I've walked into, and you walk into the building and it's the sales floor or the sales pod or the sales desk, you can see it.
Yeah.
And more often than not, in a lot of the ones that I find are having serious problems,
right,
there's a uniformity to what I'm seeing. They're usually predominantly male. They're usually predominantly, for the sake of argument, between sort of 22 and 27 years old.
Yeah.
There's football stuff everywhere. There's like loads, football. And that's great, because I'm sure there's this whole kind of which I find inane and horrible and garbage, kind of wolf pit, wolf of Wall Street type worship. That I can't stand. This is a different topic, but very little kind of individuality and very little kind of diversity in terms of the types of people that you think you see in there. And I'm not talking about purely gender or ethnicity or anything else like that. I'm talking just about how it looks like a sales manager has gone out and looked for a carbon copy of a certain kind of individual.
And then they're usually trying to push a carbon copy of a way to sell.
Yeah, and it causes problems. It causes problems because there's very few different ways to identify, discuss, and overcome business and sales issues that arise, and not just sales issues, business issues as a whole. That kind of pack mentality sets in, and the alpha gets established, and the whole thing, it creates its own momentum. And sometimes that's brilliant, certain industries, certain companies, but the majority of times that I've spoken to people, there are issues there because you've got sales management, and then you've got alpha sales dog, and if alpha sales dog doesn't agree with it, as soon as sales manager's out the door, alpha sales dog says, right, he's full of shit, this is how we're going to run it, I'm doing the big numbers, follow me. And I've seen this model. We've even dealt with it in our own space.
I've never been that guy. I've never said that.
I've never been that guy, but it's a killer. It's a killer. So if you can surround yourself with as many different people, different backgrounds, different types and styles, and we don't have KPIs for outbound phone calls and phone duration and all this garbage. We did away with it absolutely years. We focus on results.
Where people are calling 0800 numbers so they can go around the system 5 times so they get a 10-minute call time.
Yeah,
I've never done it. For any of my previous employees, I've never done it.
Never done it. Yeah, never done it. But we focus on results, and one of the things that I'm always a huge fan of is getting people in the door and working with them on day one. Right, where's your comfort zone? Where's your sweet spot? I'll push you. I'll try and get you to step outside of it. But the most important thing is, how do you feel you're most effective? Let's harness that and see how we can, translate your process into ours and work with you on your own style. And that's something that is time intensive, and it's intensive to understand that and build that into, especially when your business is like ours, where we do have processes, we do have set ways of doing things, but accommodating the individual and working with them has been key to us having the success that we've had. So it's a big thing for me.
But it's great, because that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk is that what you're doing is different in the channel. I've seen from my experience, I've seen behind the curtain a little bit, and there's not enough resellers that are trying to speak to end users. They're trying to be IT companies, and as we said, much earlier, it's boring. I don't care about the details and the passion and the wonderfulness that people must have about plumbing either. Till my boiler goes, and then I really care that there is someone passionate and knowledgeable to show up and stop, water pissing all over me and the wife, right? But it's a similar situation for businesses. We're a creative agency. We don't want to talk tech. Now, we're an enigma because both me and my partner, we've got long-term in tech. In fact, the entire management team has like 40 years of tech experience. So we actually, and we moved into an office with a data center. God love those VARs. They set things up really nice. So we care. And even then it's not top of our list, and we know why, right? We've seen, we've both worked. Tony worked in a vendor. I worked in a VAR, worked in distribution. We've both worked for end users and kind of, in the tech space as well. It's still not, we care about making things, videos and stuff, new cameras and stuff. And it's down here, tech, apart from when we're sitting trying to do this new thing, upgrade, etc. It's the most important thing to us. So what I love about how, you present Haptic kind of to the world is it's not about tech. It's about, you should come and talk to us about what we got going on, which is why I guess, you're saying there that, you started as a reseller, you were shifting tin. But now that feels a lot more towards service, managed service provide, in that service space, because that's the USP. Otherwise, just go and, be for one of the big boys and sell cost plus 1, cost plus 2, and sell 1,000 units. And all you do is look at SKUs. All you do is look at spreadsheets all day and be like, oh, it's that much into a calculator. Here you go. But boring, right? Much more interesting to have conversations about why.
Yeah.
Why, what are you trying to achieve and why?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we need to come at this from and let Ted, your technical person, not me or Joe, ever have that conversation. But then
No.
let that get talked out and get to that solution of being like, now we can help you achieve where you're trying to get to.
Yeah, we've got customers that we're still working with after 15 years, 14 years, 13 years. And our whole business model is set around long-term customer acquisition
Mhm.
and retention.
Nice.
And like I say, it's not always been that way. And certainly when we started, people always say, if you could go back to your first week in business, I don't know if you've been asked this one. If you go back, what advice would you give yourself? I always say, don't do it. Go and work for someone else. Enjoy your hairline and don't do it. Was my usual go-to. But no, realistically, if I could go back to the start, I would always tell myself to have more kind of focus on the end goal and where you want the business to go.
Yeah.
Because certainly for the first, I think this is why we got into a bit of trouble, a bit of an existential crisis. For the first sort of 4 or 5 years, our MO, our whole vision, goal, directive, why, all of that fluffy stuff was 2 words. It was sell shit. Get in, sell shit. I don't care what you're selling. I don't care who
No,
you're selling
but
it to.
yeah.
Just sell it. Just flog it. And we had tons of instances where you'd look at orders coming through and you'd be like, "What's that you're selling?" And oh well,
Yeah.
I was doing this big summer project with somebody, and this one was a summer project with a big college, and the guy asked if he could sell sewing machines. So we kind of went and flogged a few, and I hit the roof. I was like, we don't sell sewing machines. Like what the fuck is that?
Wait, are these Wi-Fi enabled sewing machines? Because if
No.
not, I don't want nothing to do with them.
No, they're your communal garden dumb sewing machines. And I think
dumb show like dumb terminals,
like dumb phones, yeah. And it kind of led to me. It led me to and the team to go, right. You know what, we've got a problem here. The tail's wagging the dog. It shouldn't be a case of salespeople being overly kind of free to just pick and choose what they sell.
Yeah.
And yeah, we looked at the whole thing. We stripped it all back. We had over 600 odd customers at the time, up and down the UK, and we looked at them. We're like, right, a good, over 300 of these have got to go. They're not good customers.
Wow.
They're just buying kit from us. There's no relationship. We don't have that kind of trusted advisor position there, and we don't understand enough about their business to be valuable to them over a long time. So we had a massive customer cull before it was cool on LinkedIn to say you tell customers and it was transformational for the business. 2020, 2019, 2021, these years especially have been the best years we've ever had as a business in terms of our profitability, and it's all down to kind of stripping back the customers, kind of sticking to our knitting and just not getting carried away on all these flights of fancy and random shiny shit that can pop up and distract you. So yeah, it's been a big curve.
So one of the things you've used to in that journey of being a bit different is a real focus on LinkedIn, right? A real actual usage of LinkedIn by yourself and the company and people within the business as well. Where did that come from? Because I'm sure we're a similar age, and I'm sure you remember when LinkedIn was just a recruiter's paradise.
Yeah.
And the only time I'd update it is when I got fired or left the job. And I go and say how I was a manager there, and then move on. Right, and it's moved on so much. And as you mentioned on the show, we've had Leah Turner, we've had Mike Winnett. We've had these people who have kind of like completed it, mate, and very quickly as well. And Leah's a brilliant example, because watching her go from when we first spoke, some thousands, I think she'd gone over like 10,000, and I was like, man, that's loads of followers suddenly. And she was like, right. I was like, let's talk in 2 months when the next space in the show is. And she jumped on it, was like 60,000.
Yeah.
Okay, mate. But you use it in an industry where people are still using it like it's that recruiter's paradise.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a lead gen tool. They're not doing any social selling, I guess I would say. And you seem to be real pushing at social selling.
It sounds daft. I'm gonna contradict you here without kind of really knowing that you'd walked into a little bit of a trap there. Our whole strategy with LinkedIn, we've got a social strategy for LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube, and it's one line. And our LinkedIn strategy is make the team appear to be one they want to join. And where that comes from was I started on LinkedIn, Jesus, over 9 years ago, I think I first got on it. And yeah, it was horribly plaid and boring and full of, I'm Jeremy Pisswiffle in accounts, and this is what I'm looking for today. And
You
it's
leave
almost like,
Jezza alone. I still follow Jezza.
good old Jez. It's it was an extension of these, kind of god awful kind of BNI setups that you got.
Yeah.
And it was shit. And I got on it and I made the biggest mistake of the whole platform, which was I was trying to sell
Right.
we got these, buy these, and just getting crickets, straight down the line crickets. Nobody was interested. And it took me a good couple of years to realize, because I kind of got on it, then got off it thinking this is not making business. This is bullshit. I got off it and then I realized, right, we're doing something wrong. One of the best pieces of advice is that I've ever been given is if your competitors are doing something that you do, stop doing it. Do something else. Talk differently, have a different message, have a different approach. And we said, right, okay, we're going to stop trying to sell on LinkedIn. We're going to focus our efforts on LinkedIn around talent acquisition purely. So that meant instead of shining a light on, oh, here's our case study, we've just done our King's Cross project. Oh, here we go, and Royal Hospital Chelsea and stuff that we're cool with because we're getting on
and excited by it and is good for the business. Is a great moment. Is a hey, you know what I mean?
You go in our office, and one of the things on the wall is a front page of the Telegraph that we had our project giving Wi-Fi to the Royal Hospital Chelsea and the Chelsea pensioners. That's framed in our office.
Super proud of it. Super proud.
No one really gives us outside of that. So it was like, instead of talking about our technologies, our wins and our solutions, let's shine a light on us. Let's talk about, what makes us tick. Let's talk about our kind of our culture in the business. Let's talk about our DNA a little bit. But more importantly, let's talk, let's have a voice. Let's say some things. Let's, do some personal posts before the whole, this isn't Facebook shit. And all those losers. And it works. And by proxy, we do win new business and we do have customers contact us, and that's brilliant. And I'm really happy about that. But we had 2 interviews this week, and both of the candidates, so I loved both of them. One of the interview questions is, where else are you looking and what would make you pick us over them? And when both of them said, I'm in current employment, I'm happy where I am, I'm not interviewing anywhere else, I saw the job advert and I wanted to come and work with you guys.
Yeah.
I was like, that's it.
That's what we're going for.
Everything else is extra, and it's great. So yeah, I think we sell on LinkedIn and we generate new business opportunities on LinkedIn by not selling on LinkedIn and just trying to just be.
But that is social selling, right? Social selling isn't getting an automated tool and sending out 1,000, hi, Mr. Joe, Jay, would you buy video? I see you work in the XXX industry, whatever, right? It's not that. It's connecting with people and building relationships. It's been social, right? And the selling happens maybe. But when it does happen, it happens because we're in that space of my plumber's broke, my boiler's broken. And thank God I've already been talking to a plumber for a long time, right?
Yeah.
I know who I'm going to speak to because they've had good conversations about boiler management that I've not listened to or something.
Yeah. And I think the key to that is, firstly, I'd probably say half of the team use LinkedIn and then half the team don't. So the guys that don't, and they don't have an interest in it, there's no pressure whatsoever. I'm not getting you on it because, you see, for it maybe like I have, but you kind of see these posts and it's like, it's almost like your kid coming home from a school trip. It's like, I have just joined, PTSD Networks retailers, and I'm having such a wonderful time. My bosses are so supportive. And you're like, piss off.
The first 3 days has been transformational.
Yeah, come on. That's been handed to you.
Yeah.
To get, so people can smell a rat. And I think people are so finely tuned now to call bullshit and to see bullshit and to smell it from a mile off. We're all like matadors. It's just a conveyor belt of bullshit everywhere, and we just got really good at sussing it out. So when something isn't genuine, it stands out like a sore thumb. And I've always loved that when people come to our office And believe it or not, I know this seems like some kind of like geeks playground. You go in our office and there's just kind of Lego everywhere and Big Lebowski posters. And people are like, yeah, this is what I was expecting. And it's like, good,
You're
man.
right.
Good. I'd hate for you to walk in and be like, I wasn't
The
expecting
fuck?
this. And yeah, hang on, everybody's in cubicles and wearing grey suits, and so you've got to be authentic, and you've got to be kind of genuine. But if my guys want to contribute on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
we've talked about it. We've talked about certain things, like we've set some parameters, even simple things like if you want to take a picture of anything in the office space, just have, not just me, just have someone else just veto it, just in case there's a person.
Do you realize you've got, or do you realize you've got invoice details on that screen behind you? Stuff, stuff you just haven't posted, right?
Because someone, I'm not going to name drop, but I
you know
might
who
do
you
anyway.
are.
You know who you are. No, I'm going to name drop. I think it was Insight. It might have been one of the bigger boys, but they did a horrible one. It was horrible. And I'm going back about 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was Christmas, and they'd lined up 3 members of staff in the returns department. And the members of staff had all come in Christmas dresses, like elf dresses. So it was very much a kind of, oh, look at our glorious elves in this department. All standing again here. But there was a whiteboard behind them. They had returns refusals and a leaderboard of percentages for people that had refused the most RMAs and returns. And loads of people were like, that's an interesting way to incentivize your team. And I was like, this is where it goes wrong, right? So yeah, with the team,
we call it. We're creating content all the time. We do exactly the same thing. Second pair of eyes. Second pair of eyes.
Yeah.
You'll be amazed how many times. And by adding that in, knowing that you're going to be like, usually means people take another look themselves. So we always say, like, don't start something at 4:30. Right. In what we're doing, you're not going to get into it properly, and you're going to nail it in half the time tomorrow morning. Right. Why not jump into it properly tomorrow morning? If that means shoot off, it means shoot off. But like, there's just no point in trying to get into, especially in edit, something that's going to take 4 hours or to get done, because you're going to walk in tomorrow and be like, what was I thinking? Redo it, and then you've just wasted an hour anyway. You might as well go and enjoy the sun.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. And I guess with our guys, it was like we discussed what the boundaries were, and then just go and have fun inside it. If you want to take a picture of your dog, do it. If you want to take a picture of your meal you just had, they know my view on it. My view is always like, try and have some kind of value in it, even if it's don't.
But what you like isn't what everybody likes, right? And that's the point.
Exactly. And it's giving people the freedom to do that and to express themselves. And one of the biggest kind of issues that I had, especially when I started, because I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot how to craft and tailor my voice, because I came off Facebook about 7-8 years ago, which is about the time I started getting a bit heavy into LinkedIn. Weird. But I came on Facebook because I got just really bored of listening to the people that I was connected to.
Yeah.
And
same politic rant, because he likes politics. The same
inane drivel from people who you know them, or you know of them, and what they're putting out there is pure bullshit. And it was when I was attacking something like, I hate, like, this is Essex, the only way is Essex or something. I was going into one of there, and I was like, right, okay, this isn't where I need to be. I need to channel my energy somewhere else. And I started on LinkedIn, but I kept the same message. I was kind of like speaking the same way, a bit snarky, getting involved. And I listened to the feedback of the team back then, and they were like, see that post you did here? Yeah. That one didn't come off too well.
Like, do you know you're coming off as a bit of a dickhead?
Yeah, they were like, that one came off a bit salty, and you can do better than that. And I was like,
I know you, and I know you're being like cutting, but you're a nice guy with it. But the post doesn't necessarily put it across.
Exactly. Yeah. So I always listened to that, and I always kind of took that on board, and that kind of feedback, and that helped me kind of just position myself a little bit, so as that I'm being authentic, and I'm talking about things in the way that I would do. I mean, I called somebody on LinkedIn, I called Boris Johnson a spam candle last week. And like little bits like that, and it's like, oh, you could maybe be alienating some of your potential customer base. You could be pissing off some people.
Good though.
You could be deterring existing customers, and I'm always aware of it, but I don't let that stop me too
But
much.
and I really think it comes down to like if you're focusing, like you're saying, on the team, right? On having people who are happy and successful in what they're trying to achieve in their different roles,
Yes.
then if someone's like, I really disagree with Joe's post, they're not going to leave the business unless like the people they're working with Jake, they're working with Jake, right? Unless they don't like the service they're getting, right? The service got to be really bad, and they got to and you've got to do some hate speech, you know, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, you know, I'm saying you've got to say something that I really, really disagree with for me to be like,
Yeah.
that's it. Pull our networking support. I want nothing to do with him.
Yeah. And but it is.
So it's more of a new business thing, right? And I don't
Yeah.
want to work with people who disagree with me, not disagree with me in any way, right? But who fully disagree with like the things I believe.
Yeah.
Because there's someone else out there that they could work with where they'll all be high-fiving over stuff which I disagree with, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I had a brilliant interaction with a guy, James. Shouts to James over in Canada. And we've got a beer fridge in the office and a vinyl player. And on a Friday, you know, bit pre-COVID and sort of after, we'd down tools, we'd go downstairs, we'd put some vinyl on, we'd drink some beers, we'd just kind of like decompress for the week.
Wow.
And I put on License to Ill by Beastie Boys on the turntable and just literally just did a little LinkedIn video of just the vinyl spinning around. And this guy popped up and like, you know, I love the Beasties and started chatting. And then next thing you know, he had a customer in London that he couldn't service because they moved from Canada to London. And he said, yeah, speak to Joe. He's cool. And we did tons of business with this firm in London that I'd never spoken to before because the guy that used to look after them liked the Beastie Boys. And I was like, right, this is how this works.
This is how it works, because that relationship's always really easy, isn't it? I love those. Like it took me a long time to be in business, build relationships where I could be like, yo, Bobby, do me a favor, right? You know what I mean? Especially in sales when I'm like having a hard month or whatever, but just being able to call up and be like, do me a favor. You know, we're talking about that project. Let's invoice the first part because come on, I'm dying here or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
It took me a long time to get there. And in the same way, then running a business, being able to turn around and be like, you know, we have a hole in our social media side of things that we need to support on, or we need a paid ad specialist. Actually having people where I could be like, well, I've spoken to this person. But LinkedIn provides me the ability to build that network out. I can constantly talk to a bunch of different web devs, have them on my radar and I'm talking to, and build relationships with them. So when we have something where we're like, God, I need a dev, we've got an army of them, right? Or at very least, we've got an army of referrals, because we've got a bunch of people who are like that way inclined and like that stuff. And even if they can't work with us or don't want to or whatever, they can all be like, you should check out Janie, you know, and that's what it's really, really about, isn't it? Because I just couldn't build this network. I've spent that 25 whatever years in business, and you know, it's the 150 friends club. I can only build my network so big. Whereas on LinkedIn, I can build that network and then ebbs and flows and move into it. I've got a bunch of exhibition industry from when I worked there, but there's still good people that I work with now. And
yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
the past 28 days on LinkedIn, I've hit like 70,000 impressions on my posts and, you know, sort of 6,500 engagements from that.
You'd have to go and talk at an event. You'd have to go and talk at an event, and it'd have to be Wembley. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I can't do that with a phone. I'd have to have like maybe a 2-minute spot on a Joe Rogan podcast to get something like that.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't do it with a phone. And you know, it's really important to, you know, you hit the nail on the head. You don't want to deal with everybody. You want to find yourself with a more focused, you know, more kind of well-adjusted set of customers and prospects that you're talking to that get what you're doing. I mean, when we had our Lego, our website redone with the kind of Lego avatars for the About Us and all the rest of it, we mentioned that we're on Reddit. There's a thread on Reddit where they're talking about good IT companies to work with. And there's loads of people saying on the thread about us, which is cool. Thanks for that. And then one guy pops up and he's like, yeah, talk to Haptic Networks. Their website's shit, but they're really cool. And I was like, so I kind of like, we kind of deduced who this guy was from the customers. And I was like, do you know, I didn't take it as a bad thing, and I didn't take it as negative criticism. Like that's his opinion, and that's cool. Because as a network manager in IT, what he was used to was going onto a website and being belt fed all the necessary information. Here's your cheesy stock images of guy at laptop. Here's the cheesy horrible About Us where everyone's going, and then, you know, here's a whole list of partners and vendor badges. And we don't have that. And I think that that may have put him off or put people off because they want to go on your website and make a snap decision about whether or not to contact you.
Sure.
We would much prefer people to hit our website and use the chatbot or use the email or to ring us up and talk to us and
Yeah.
see what we're like and try and get things.
Because if someone's making a snap decision, then they're buying product.
Yeah.
They're buying a thing. If you're making a snap decision, just be like, I need a can of Coke. I'm going to go Sainsbury's, little shop, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, right?
Exactly.
And that's what you want. But if you want to like talk to someone about the next drink you're going to have and what your thirst requirements are, right? You go and find someone and they talk to you about where the best place is, fridge temperature.
Ask you questions like, oh, so how long have you been thirsty for? What have you tried to do to fix the problem? And yeah, everything else.
If you continue to be thirsty, what impact will that have on you?
What have you tried to do to fix your thirst issue?
What previous drinks quenched you? Because me and Joe could clearly do this all day. Listen, we try and keep this under an hour because people can lunch it up and have it on the background while they're working. But awesome show. We could definitely talk for another 6 weeks. Just do the longest show ever made. But so we'll put this out as a podcast. You can check it out afterwards. But if you want to come and find you, follow your awesome content, learn a little something, see the best damn website I've seen in the IT industry.
Wow.
If you like Lego, and if not, to be honest, because those avatars are just gorgeous thing. Where do people find you, Mr. Joe?
You find us at www.haptic-networks.com. But yeah, just get us on LinkedIn. Get us on Instagram, have a look around the office. But yeah, just search us up.
Well, and at least we know we've had an impact on someone, because Sophie Malone's just commented to say that she's currently walking into Tesco's to say, I have thirst requirements right now.
Oh, well,
Well, listen, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you.
That's all we have for the Daily Show. Mr. Richard, take us to the bridge, sir. Come on. Well, there it is, folks. The wonderful Mr. Joe Aucott, killing it right here on The Daily Show. Huge thanks to Joe. Check out Haptic Networks for all of your IT lovely needs, or check out Joe's content if you just want to engage and be part of that scene. He releases really interesting stuff. He's a really good person to talk to, and just say hello. He's clearly people focused. As I said at the beginning of the show, we are going to be taking a break at the end of August. So keep your guests coming in. We will put them on the list, but we're not going to contact people until the new year. So we've got some space in people's calendars. The show will be back. God knows that. We're going to come back bigger, stronger, faster, and better, with new branding and stuff and lights and fireworks and monkeys, all kinds of things. So check us out. Keep following us on The Daily Show. If you're watching on YouTube or anywhere else, hit that like, hit the subscribe button, hit the wee bell. We like it. The algorithm likes it. And damn it, it makes my little Richard, the producer, so happy. See you in the next episode of The Daily Show.